Move to defund. Members of Congress cite damaging videos in an effort to cut off federal funding to Planned Parenthood. More than a green attitude, Pope Francis clarifies his view of human ecology. Real-life drama. A recaptured prisoner spills his guts about his elaborate escape plan. And confirmed by a cardinal, Peyton O'Brien receives the Holy Spirit, strengthening him in his battle with cancer. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, July 22nd, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. A new House bill would slap an immediate moratorium on federal funding for Planned Parenthood. Meanwhile, congressional committees investigate that organization's activities. This after undercover videos allege parts of aborted babies are being harvested and sold for research. Wisconsin Representative Sean Duffy led speeches on the House floor last night against Planned Parenthood. Today, he talked with our Jason Calvi about ways Congress could try to defund America's largest abortion provider.
The push to defund Planned Parenthood seems to be gaining momentum. Do you think that's going to happen in the budgetary process or legislation? Which one do you think will be more successful?
So I think we're going to do all of the above. We're going to do legislation, we'll try that route, and we're going to try the budgetary process. I don't think the American people have fully understood how grotesque this industry is, and I think the curtain pulled back is a great opportunity for us to make sure we're taking money away from Planned Parenthood, who is the lead provider of abortion in the country.
So let's say there was a legislation that was passed by Senate, House, would likely be vetoed by the president. Do we have to wait till 2016 or 2017 to see this actually move forward?
The president's a hard abortion supporter, so I don't know that he would sign that legislation, and I don't think we would get the numbers to override the veto. But anything's possible. And if we don't get it now with this president, I think the work we do now, the momentum we build now, will be helpful when we hopefully have a pro-life president in the White House. How
does it happen in the budget process? How would that possibly be an avenue to defund Planned Parenthood?
Looking at the appropriations process on the funding side, we remove the dollars. You take them away. Now, that can become a big fight. That could become an issue that the president's willing to fight and shut the government down over. I think the winner is determined by the American people.
We'll have more on Representative Duffy's efforts to investigate Planned Parenthood. Meanwhile, 50 senators raised their concerns in a bipartisan letter to Health and Human Service Secretary Sylvia Burwell. That's Burwell. Ken Blackwell is a senior fellow for family empowerment with the Family Research Council. Ken, would you agree with pro-life activists, black pro-life activists, that minorities are being targeted for abortions by Planned Parenthood and other providers?
You know, I think in general, low-income citizens and women in particular are being targeted. And minorities, because many minorities have a disproportionate number of their population in the low-income status, are low-hanging fruit for these abortionists. And so I think when you couple that with the fact that the founder of Planned Parenthood was Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Sanger was not only a twisted eugenist, she was a racist. And she thought blacks were inferior, and that if you, in fact, could get rid of that inferior strain of human species, everybody would be better off.
That's startling. You think that culture is still prevalent in that organization?
Unfortunately, the folks who have tried to run faith out of and God out of the public square, the folks who have chased prayer out of our public schools, the folks who have turned marriage on its head as a sacred institution, they in fact have reduced this down to an economic proposition or a political proposition, and what they don't know is that it is also a spiritual battle that we're engaged in, and that's why we're winning. It's because we never gave up after the '73 decision. We've stayed in there on all fronts.
Ken, in this marriage battle, we've heard gay rights compared with civil rights. Why isn't there that comparison ever made with the rights of the unborn?
Well, you know, the rights of the unborn have been on the mouths of many leaders across the movement, whether they be black or white or Latino. So often the mainstream media disregards or marginalizes that effort. And as a consequence, we've just had to pick up a larger megaphone and really take the battle, whether it be direct action in front of abortion mills, in state legislative bodies, in the courts, or where I like to do battle, and that is in dialogue with people where we speak straight to their heart. Because the only reason that folks can turn abortion into a profitable business is because they have dehumanized us and made us callous to the human dimension of the life in the woman's womb.
Well, in Ohio, your home state, they're taking action. We're going to talk with the Attorney General a little later. Ken Blackwell, thank you.
Good to be with you, Brian.
Appreciate it. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. A federal appeals court affirms a ruling striking down one of the strongest pro-life laws in the country. The North Dakota law bans abortions when a fetal heartbeat can be detected. That could be as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy. The law passed the legislature in 2013. It was quickly put on hold after the state's lone abortion clinic filed a lawsuit. The city of Ferguson, Missouri has another new interim police chief. It's the police department's third change in leadership in just 4 months. Andre Anderson, an African-American, was recently a commander in Glendale, Arizona. The department is under pressure since last year's fatal police shooting of 18-year-old Michael Brown. Anderson says he wants to build trust between police and the community there. Pope Francis urges mayors from around the world to take better care of the environment. But he says we have to do much more than go green.
Pero esa cultura del cuidado del ambiente no es una actitud solamente, lo digo en buen sentido, verde, entre comillas. No es una actitud verde, es mucho más. La ecología es total, es humana.
Pope Francis spoke Tuesday at a Vatican conference on climate change and human trafficking. California Jerry Brown, the governor there, attending that meeting, expressing gratitude for the Pope's call to action.
Pope Francis, more than any other authority, has been able to convene and persuade and launch into the world a heightened awareness that is really crucial to our well-being.
And it should be pointed out on issues such as abortion and the redefinition of marriage, Brown, who was once a Jesuit seminarian, opposes the Church and the Holy Father. Joining us from Rome is Jessica Espy, Associate Director of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. That's an initiative of the United Nations. Jessica, it sounds like the UN sees Pope Francis as an ally on the issue of climate change. Is anyone hearing his efforts to tie in population control and human trafficking with the climate change issue?
I believe some people have tried to argue that, but I think the real message at the basis of Pope Francis's argument is that we really have a unique opportunity this year. This year, with the climate agenda in December being agreed in Paris, and with the Sustainable Development Goals being agreed in September in New York, we have a real roadmap to try and draw attention to the challenges of sustainable development, to try and encourage world leaders to come together and to decarbonize or to reduce their carbon emissions, and also the world's cities, and that's why we're here in the Vatican at the moment.
But the Pope really wants to focus on the poor and the impact that climate change has on the poor. He says that they are the most affected. What do you think he means when he says we need more than just a green attitude?
I think what he's saying here is we can't just think about small-scale, tokenistic interventions. This isn't about just picking up a piece of plastic and putting it in the recycling bin. This is about fundamental change in the way we drive our economies, making sure that we're using green energies, that we're really moving to a decarbonized, low-emission pathway, where we're going to really reduce our impact on the planet and start to restore some of the imbalance that we've seen in the global ecosystem, to make sure that we and our children and our children's children have a sustainable future. And that requires a real attitude shift, a fundamental transformation of the way we've been evolving to date.
It's a very interesting situation that a papal encyclical seems to be the marching orders for the world, the UN in particular in this case. The Pope stresses human ecology, putting the human being at the center of this ecology movement. Can you and others buy into that?
Absolutely. I should say that the Pope's encyclical is the most incredibly timed event and just so poignant in the run-up to the two events in September and December that will try to agree a climate change commitment. In terms of this being a people's agenda and the idea of human ecology, I think here a really strong message is that, and very powerfully, the Pope recognized in his encyclical that it is a human impact on the planet that is having a very dramatic effect on our climate. Climate change is not just an event that is happening over the sort of course of time independently of humans. It is something that we have brought on and something that we are driving. So it's only with human action that we're really going to be able to curtail this challenge and to stop the very high emissions that are causing global warming and many of the broader damage that's been caused to the environment.
Yeah, I believe that human ecology refers more toward the impact on human beings than the human impact on the environment. But you could see it both ways, I'm sure. Joining us from Rome, Jessica Espy, the Associate Director of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Thank you, Jessica. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks very much.
And organizers of the World Meeting of Families in Philadelphia launch a new mobile app to help visitors navigate the city of brotherly love. Just released today, Go Philadelphia lists dozens of events and exhibits surrounding the September meeting and papal visit. It includes an interactive map and all the latest information about the Pope's trip and the World Meeting of Families. It's a free download and will continue to be updated over the next 2 months. Coming up, it makes a great movie script. A captured escapee details his successful breakout plan from a New York State prison. And Washington residents take a unique pledge, preparing to welcome Pope Francis in just 2 months. Today is July 22nd, the feast of St. Mary Magdalene, follower of Jesus, model of penitence. According to John's Gospel, she was the first to witness the resurrection of Christ, not to mention that she was at the foot of the cross. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. We're using Skype to connect with Columbus, Ohio. The Attorney General for the Buckeye State is joining us, Mike DeWine. Mike, your office is launching an investigation into Planned Parenthood facilities there in Ohio. What do you think your investigation might uncover?
Well, I saw the video, and now videos, and was frankly shocked by them. What the videos described appeared to me, at least, to be partial birth abortion, which of course is illegal in Ohio, and it's illegal throughout the country. I worked very hard when I was in the U.S. Senate to get it passed. You have that. You also have this cavalier attitude about body parts from the unborn child. One of the things the Ohio Attorney General does is to regulate nonprofits in the state of Ohio. That's part of our charge. So we have 3 Planned Parenthood facilities in the state of Ohio that do abortions. So we have launched an investigation to look to see exactly what they're doing. Are they in fact doing what it would appear that the medical director was talking about, the sale of body parts, which is prohibited by the Ohio Code, and it's prohibited, of course, by the U.S. Code as well. So we've just started that investigation, and as I've told the Planned Parenthood people, when they criticized it, I said, look, if you're not doing this, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, they claim they're donating this tissue for research. Obviously, you're not buying into that completely.
No, if you look at the 2 videos, I mean, they're just shocking. Just horrible. Clearly, they're talking about sale price, going back and forth on the sale price. So it's just, very, very bad. And what we're going to determine is whether or not the 3 facilities in the state of Ohio are they doing that. The people who are in these videos, the first one was the national, medical director. So it's not like you're talking about some low-level employee of Planned Parenthood somewhere.
Well, we'll follow up on that investigation. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
And we're learning riveting new details tonight about last month's brazen prison break in upstate New York. The captured escapee tells investigators how the breakout was planned and successfully executed. Wyatt Goolsbee explains how patience, timing, and perhaps prison failures all played into the real-life drama.
It was a plan at least 6 months in the making. Several people briefed on the investigation tell the New York Times that prison escapee David Sweat has portrayed himself as the mastermind behind the elaborate June 6 breakout. According to the Times, Sweat says he had long planned to escape, but it wasn't until he was moved into a cell in January near the now deceased Richard Matt that he moved forward with his plan. The 35-year-old says he used a hacksaw blade to cut a hole in his cell and then in the back of Matt's. He says another inmate heard the commotion, but Matt, a painter, blamed the noise on his artwork.
He said he used a sledgehammer on that pipe, and to be able to make that noise for a month trying to get through that pipe with just a hacksaw, that's incredible.
By February, Sweat says they gained access to the catwalks behind their cells. He told investigators for months he would explore the tunnels beneath the prison for hours on end, between 11:30 at night until 5:30 in the morning, all made possible because he says the guards were asleep.
The complacency on the part of the guards in that honor block is just unbelievable to me.
Sweat says he slowly began chipping away at the prison's outer wall using a sledgehammer. But on May 4th, they got their big break when the prison turned off the heating system, giving the prisoners the chance to cut through a cooling steam pipe with the hacksaw. The Times also reports that the convicted killers relished the possible legend of their plan, even joking about it, bragging that while it took Shawshank Redemption's Andy Dufresne 20 years to break out, it would take them only 10. One of the people briefed on the investigation told the New York Times that authorities largely view Sweat's account to be credible. The escape of the two convicted killers has spawned several investigations into practices at the prison. The facility has already implemented some changes and has placed a dozen workers on leave. Brian.
What an amazing story. Wyatt, thank you. 2 months from today, Pope Francis arrives in Washington, D.C. Ahead of his visit, Catholic leaders here issue a challenge today. Catherine Szeltner has that story.
They basically gave me my life back.
Barbara Deal knows firsthand the impact of Catholic Charities. Once homeless, she used their housing program and now works full-time and lives on her own.
It gave me the tools that I needed to get through life.
It's that kind of service Catholic leaders say Pope Francis wants everyone to embrace.
You know, frankly, a lot of us don't get out enough. We can be doing our the normal work, and he's saying get out in the streets and make a difference.
The Archdiocese of Washington and Catholic Charities in D.C. launched the Walk with Francis pledge today. The challenge is this: do a good deed, say a prayer, or speak out for justice before Francis arrives in the U.S.
If you want to walk with Francis, it's simple. Type up your pledge on social media, snap a picture, then send it off to challenge your friends.
The goal is to get 100,000 pledges from D.C. locals. Cardinal Donald Wuerl will give Pope Francis a book filled with the social media promises during his stop at Catholic Charities in D.C. Wuerl says the digital world is key to spreading the message.
We know it'll reach so many thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and thanks to EWTN, millions.
A good deed and a tweet. That's paying it forward Francis style. Catherine Szeltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next, a new poll shows more Americans favor religious freedom over gay rights. And this little boy is fortified with the sacraments as he faces a life-threatening cancer. Christian matrimony is a lifelong covenant of love between one man and one woman. It entails real sacrifices in order to turn away from the illusory notions of sexual freedom and in order to foster conjugal fidelity. Pope Francis on marriage. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick. And a majority of Americans believe religious freedom trumps gay rights. An Associated Press GFK poll taken after the Supreme Court's ruling redefining marriage shows 56% of those surveyed think protecting religious liberties of those opposed to same-sex marriage is more important than protecting the rights of gays. 59% also think wedding-related businesses with religious objections should be able to refuse services. Overall, 41% disapprove of the court's ruling, while 39% approve and 18% are undecided. Dr. Chad Pecknold is back with us, a theology professor at Catholic University of America. His book is Christianity and Politics. Talk about how the results differ from before the ruling to after the ruling.
Brian, in April, in the run-up to the oral arguments in the Supreme Court, political activists made the polls their priority. The polls reflected 61, 63% in the CNN poll. The AP poll, which is the gold standard, was more conservative at 48%, but the headlines were all supermajority support for same-sex marriage.
But artificially inflated.
I think so, because the AP poll now in July comes out after the Obergefell ruling. People have buyer's remorse. The pressure is off, and they can say what they really think. Now only 42% support. So we see a deflation. I think that tells us there was an artificial consensus created by elites.
But judging from the media coverage of this whole thing, don't you find it surprising that a majority feel this way?
I think what's surprising is that we have a kind of, most Supreme Court decisions are supported by the majority of Americans once they're made, even controversial ones like Roe. But this one, after Obergefell, we see a decline in support for same-sex marriage. I think that shows us that the original support was soft, and now we're seeing how this is playing out. People are making their views known, that they think religious liberty should trump any conflicts with gay rights.
We don't hear much from them, though. Why aren't they speaking out?
I think because of fear. The tactics on the other side have been ruthless, and they've indicated to people that they should be silent. But John Paul II tells us, be not afraid. Stand up, speak your mind, tell the truth about the beauty of marriage, and that truth will shine a light on America.
Great direction from Dr. Chad Pecknold, the Catholic University of America. Chad, thanks for being back with us.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
And finally tonight, we meet a young boy who is living his gift of life to the fullest. Peyton O'Brien received his first communion from an archbishop. He was confirmed this Sunday in New York by Cardinal Timothy Dolan. Now that's just part of his story. Mark Irons has more.
It's his reception, but he's in the hallway entertaining friends after a big moment.
Now this morning, folks, we're going to have the sacrament of confirmation. Meet Peyton Anthony O'Brien.
Peyton is like any other energetic boy, except he has a rare form of bone cancer.
Cardinal Dolan suggested that we come to New York for a visit for Peyton's confirmation. And I think it was in part due to the uncertain path ahead and the strength that can be drawn from receiving the sacrament.
Peyton made his first communion at Lourdes, where he was dipped in baths known to be miraculous.
Peyton Anthony, be sealed with the gift of the Holy Spirit.
Peyton takes Anthony of Padua, the patron saint of amputees, as his confirmation name. A prosthetic leg can't keep this Chicago Bulls fan out of the game.
Basketball, swimming, gymnastics, baseball, just a soccer already.
Peyton's grandfather is his role model.
You know, I'm a golfer like this, I skied like this. He knows that life can be done with the situation through me.
Since his diagnosis a year and a half ago, Peyton has endured chemo and several surgeries. His many hospital visits are a mixed bag.
Sort of fun and sort of boring. The reason it's fun is because I get to get away from my sisters and there's a playroom.
Recent x-rays reveal more cancer in his lungs. Still, Peyton's mother remains grateful.
He's lived a very full, short life. And I hope it goes on for years and years and years. But if it doesn't, I mean, what an amazing journey he's had.
Send your Holy Spirit upon Peyton.
A little boy, already sharing the gifts he's received.
And Peyton's family is deeply grateful for all the love and support they've received. To learn more about Peyton's story or to donate, type in his name on caringbridge.com. His father updates that page. And of course, Brian, please pray for Peyton.
We can be assured that we'll pray. Thank you, Mark. And I want to ask each of you to pray as well. Until tomorrow, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night, and God bless you.